Hello everyone, I am Douglas E. Welch and welcome back to another episode of In the Garden. Well, it's been a slow week around the garden. This week I caught a cold a couple days ago. Probably still hear a little bit in my voice, and it's prevented me from getting out and doing some jobs that really needed to get done. One of which was to get my Monrovia plants into my garden. We have the tea tree here, and we've got the buckwheat here, and it's time to get these out into our garden, let them start growing on. As you may have heard, we have a sponsorship from Monrovia. They gave us a little stipend to get a few plants for our garden to try them out and test out their quality and the type of plants that they have available. So I went to a nursery a couple weeks ago, got these two plants, and now we're ready to actually get them out into the garden today. For more information on everything that I do, including a gardener's notebook, visit douglasewelch.com. Now, one of our first tasks today is to actually clean out this area of the bed. These azaleas that you see in the background there are slowly dying out, and we've been replacing them in these geometric beds over time. So this gives us a nice opportunity to get a new plant growing in this area that might be a little better suited. Now, as you can see, we got a little grass growth in here. This is simply part of our normal winter issue out here. We get the rains in the winter and grass just pops up everywhere. So first thing to do is to get those out of here. And you also see, here's an example of one of our elm tree saplings. The elm tree is right behind me here, and they pop up everywhere every year. So it gives us a chance to get those out of this bed as well. Then we're going to put the tea tree into this bed right here. Now, one thing I always need to remember is that many of these beds are rather old, and they're a bit exhausted in some ways as far as the soil goes. So every time I plant something new, I make sure I turn over what's here, and then I add in a little bit of extra garden soil as a kind of way of retrofitting these beds in place, give the new plants a little better opportunity to get started, help to start reinvigorating the bed as a whole. So we'll turn over the soil that's here, which you can see is a little bit hard packed. We'll integrate that new garden soil in there, and then we'll get our new plant in place. So there's our new planting hole, all in place with the new garden soil worked in there a little bit. That should give it a nice place to start. So let's take a look at our seedling here. This is our, not really a seedling, our transplant. This is our New Zealand tea tree from Monrovia. Again, they provided me some money to buy as many plants as I could for that amount of money to get in my garden. Let's just turn this out real quickly here. Take a look. You might be able to see that it's nicely rooted throughout. There's no root-bound nature on it. It wasn't in this container too long. The roots are equally distributed throughout the soil of the transplant. As with all transplants, we want to put this at the same level it was originally in its pot. So with this new garden soil, that makes it easy. We just pull out a nice little hole here, set him in, and I think, yeah, that's actually not too bad right there. By the time we seed him in, we're going to mound up around it a little bit to make a little moat for watering, to keep it nicely watered. We'll bring some of the old garden soil back around here too, minus the weeds, minus the grasses, to help reintegrate that into this area of the garden too. And pretty much that is looking really good. Now, one of the things I did specifically is neither one of these plants is going where the irrigation, my soaker hose irrigation, runs. These are both water-wise plants. They're designed to not need much extra water throughout the year, and in fact, in some cases, natives and near natives can actually suffer if you give them water at the wrong time of the season. So I figured this would be a great place here. It gets mainly natural water. It's not on the irrigation system, and it should start to fill in this whole area here, which will be nice. It'll kind of rebuild this area, which has been rather bare for quite a while now. So in this area, we're going to put this California buckwheat. Now, the nice thing is this bed has been retrofitted several times over, and so it's already ready to go. Really don't need to add any extra soil here. And we're going to plant it beneath this new pomegranate tree we planted a few weeks ago. I think as the pomegranate grows up, the buckwheat will spread nicely underneath it, creating a nice little white counterpart along the feet of this tree. So basically we'll dig right in and start to get things going here. So let's see how we've gone for depth here. Maybe just a little bit deeper. This soil is so good we can actually just use our hand to scrape out the remainder of the hole here. So that's looking pretty good there. Now the great thing about this buckwheat is it spreads. It kind of sprawls out. It's kind of prostrate, even though it looks fairly erect right now. I love the white flowers it gets when I see it out in our native hillsides in the chaparral area, so I'm hoping it does a nice job here. I have trouble growing it from seed, never really been successful with it, but I'm hoping starting with a nice healthy plant like this, it should settle in here nicely and start to spread out. Again, this is not on our standard irrigation system, so it should not get water when it doesn't want it. A little bit of root binding ever so slightly on the bottom, although not too bad. Just going to tease those out. The rest of the root ball looks really, really nice. Plant looks nice and healthy and green and succulent, so as it should this time of year. It does get very dry during our summer months, which it's supposed to do. It goes dormant, as any native does here in Southern California. That is pretty much it. We're just going to backfill this guy in here. Now we'll make a point of watering both of these transplants in quite well to help them get established, take any air bubbles out of their root balls and areas around their roots, so they have, again, the best chance for a great start here in our garden. I want to thank Monrovia for adding me to their sponsorship and giving me a chance to try out some of their plants. I'm not typically a buyer who buys plants from a particular nursery. I tend to just look for the variety of plant and see what happens there, but I must say I've been rather impressed with the quality of both these transplants. As I've shown you, the root balls are very good. They're very healthy looking, and that's always a great thing. You don't want to be wasting money in the garden, and we have a hard enough time getting our plants to grow, if you're like me anyway, so knowing that you have a good place to start is pretty darn good.